Hey, what's up, everybody? So welcome back to the Nick Show. So today I'm going to be doing a two-part series, and I'm going to be doing this two-part series on milk. And basically, the first part is going to be just about milk and how the government reacts with milk and all the subsidies it gives and all the price controls and so on and so forth. And the second part is going to be raw milk and how the government goes after small farms and for producing raw milk and then selling it and stuff like that. So first I'm going to start off with the first part. And so since the 1930s, the government has split the country up in 10 regions and pretty much set the price of milk for those 10 different regions. And the way they do it is that there's different ways that they do it, but the first way that they do it is that if prices fall below their target prices. So first they set a target price, and then they try to meet that target price. And if targets fall below that target price, the government will buy up the rest of the milk as a surplus amount. And what they'll do with that surplus amount is they'll store it until it goes bad. They might throw it away, or they might sell it below production cost to a different country. So, and that's pretty wasteful. So when you think about price controls, you have to think of price controls in two different ways. First, they either cause shortages, which is a really bad thing, politically for the government, for the Democrats and the Republicans. Both of them do this, and another way is that it's incredibly wasteful. They create, like I said before, they set a certain target amount, and if the price goes below that, then they buy it up, or they give certain subsidies and stuff like that. So that's pretty much the way that the government does price controls nowadays. That they are incredibly wasteful. They waste billions of dollars upon trillions of dollars of certain commodities, and that's pretty much it. And so another way that the government does price controls is that the government runs an income subsidy, where if the price goes below the target rate, they hand out cash payments to the farmers. So if the target rate goes below a certain amount, and the farmers have to hand out so much milk to the government so they can increase the price of milk, the government has to do something for the farmers so they don't go out of business too. So the way they do that is they hand out cash payments to the farmers. And once again, that's incredibly wasteful. I mean, that's handing out money so the government can basically destroy milk. And I mean, just imagine that. It's just completely ridiculous. But another way they do it is that they support all these price controls, these price control programs, by actually setting tough, by putting strict import barriers for these dairy products. So if a certain country wants to import milk, like for instance France wants to import milk, they have to pay an import tariff, and they got to get through the regulations. And what that's actually caused is that only 5% of the milk that's actually consumed in America is actually brought in from a different country. And that's all dairy products, whether it be cheese or anything that's got to do with dairy. So, and another way they raise the price to the target amount, or they set or they try to, a lot of time it goes above the target amount. But another way they do it is they subsidize consumption in the form of food stamps, and that pretty much rises the price of pretty much all goods and services. Well, pretty much all goods that you can buy with food stamps. And they don't just do this with milk. They do this with a bunch of other things like wheat and raisins and a bunch of other things. But so that's pretty much. Well, there's one other way. They actually get the milk producers together, and they actually get them together in a kind of cartel way. And the biggest milk producers from the biggest mega farms, the richest people, they get together and they actually decide on the price of what milk should be. So the richest people actually, so the richest farmers in the United States actually set the price of milk. I mean, could you imagine that if, if I don't know, if restaurants got together and decided on what the price of, food at restaurants should be, or, people getting together and deciding, the biggest electronics producers in the world, Dell, Apple, and Microsoft getting together or whatever, well, Microsoft I don't think creates any computers. They're more of they create programs and stuff like that. But imagine like all the computer producers getting together and deciding on what the price of computers would be. Well, that's actually illegal when it comes to most industries, but when it comes to milk, that's legal because the government mandates it that way. So I mean, it's just mind-blowing how fucking stupid the government is. And people don't even know this is going on. People have no idea why they're paying so much for milk. I mean, I went to the grocery store the other day and it was like $4.99. Should milk be $4.99? Juice is $3 and something for the most expensive juice you can buy at the market. But milk has to be $4.99. No, it doesn't. If all these subsidies went away, then obviously the price of milk would go down. And that would be good for the consumer. But of course, the consumers just take it in the butt basically and they accept it and people get rich off of it. So these subsidies are concentrated to the richest mega farms or the biggest farmers in the country. Three-fourths of the subsidies actually go to the richest 10% of farmers. So if, people like to talk about how government helps the small person out, well, it doesn't. It helps the richest person out. And that's why whenever they talk about cutting subsidies, they always talk about cutting food stamps first. Well, it has nothing to do with, people, mooching or whatever, because everybody mooches in this country. But they'll cut the food stamps first because those are the weakest people politically to go after. You can't go after the richest people because the richest people will go after you. But if you're poor and stuff like that, you can't go after the government. So, and what this does is it actually it helps the biggest farms out, and it doesn't barely helps out the small farms at all. And the small farms would actually benefit from those subsidies being gone completely. And another way the government kind of screws over small milk producers, other than pretty much banning raw milk consumption, raw milk retail sales, is that they put these strict regulations across the board upon small farms and these big mega farms. And these regulations are pretty much made by the big mega farms, and they're made that way to put the small farms out of business because the small farms are competing with them. So obviously something has to be done because we can't have a system of government where it's just giving money to the richest people, and people talk about inequality. That's because of the government, and this is a prime example. And the richest farmers, they can get away with pretty much anything. I mean, pretty much all of us is seeing these animal activist groups videos where they sneak in these big mega farms and they see these cows dying, or they're in this little cubicle and they can barely move, and they got pus coming out of them, and they're all diseased and dying and shit. And a lot of people are getting diseases from that, from those milk producers. And that's one of the reasons why, is because these big mega farms, they get all these subsidies and they get all this protection from the government. They can do pretty much whatever they want. Whereas the small farms, they get fucked. And I'd like to close on this first part by talking about a certain person who actually got into the milk business, because he said, swear to God, milk is a bigger racket than alcohol. And this was during Prohibition. The person that I'm actually talking about is Al Capone. So if Al Capone's saying that, milk is a racket, then it's got to be a fucking racket because, he's Al Capone. if anybody knew what a racket was, it was Al Capone. So, and Al Capone, he's actually the one who got the government to actually post expiration dates on the milk products because I guess his brother or his cousin died or something like that because of an illness that he got from consuming milk. So we can all thank him for the expiration dates, which I think is definitely a good thing, which is definitely an important thing. That should definitely be mandated, but because that protects the consumer from fraud. But yeah, that's pretty much it on this first part, and I'm going to do this second part here in a second. So.